soon as you all get your lunch and come back in, you can eat while we listen to Richard and Claudia.
Advice she once gave during a Claremont conference on Mormon women. There was this point where a young woman asked her during the Q&A, and she asked with a bit of like pain in her voice, a little tearfully. She said, how can we make change in the church? How can we make women more visible with more leadership, more decision-making power? What can we do? And Claudia's response was immediate. She said something along these lines. She said, you know what? Don't try. Don't bang your head against a brick wall. It's probably not going to help. Don't try within the church. Instead, get out in the world and make things happen for women. Start organizations, write books. Do you think that the church should be doing more, say, for domestic violence survivors? Well, if you do, start a nonprofit. Do something for them. Don't expect the church to do these things. You do it. You make it happen. This really struck me at the time. I at this time had a lot of experience of banging my head against brick walls. So this advice really stuck with me, and it pointed me towards a different way forward. And of course, Claudia practices what she preaches. As so many of us know, no one can make things happen like Claudia Bushman. And this very brief intro to her work certainly proves that. Claudia Bushman is Professor Emerita of American Studies at Columbia University and a former adjunct professor at Claremont Graduate University, where she founded the Mormon Women's Oral History Project. Her publications and achievements are too numerous to list, but as we've already been talking about today, a few of the groundbreaking ones for Mormon women include the 1971 Pink Dialogue, the 1974 Feminist Newspaper Exponent 2, and the lauded and loved 1976 publication of Mormon Sisters, which, by the way, was self-published by Claudia and the chapter authors under their own imprint after academic presses rejected the manuscript. I love that they did this. How many of us at this point would have just kind of crumpled and slunk away, but not Claudia, not her colleagues. Claudia's work and mentorship have inspired countless LDS writers and scholars to advance new work on Mormon women, making her a beloved founding mother of Mormon women's history and studies. Please join me in welcoming Claudia and her husband, Richard, who will be conducting a brief interview with Claudia. Afterwards, we're hoping that there will be time for audience members to share comments, memories, and appreciations for Claudia and the impact she has left. Thank you.
When we got a word from Caroline and Maxine that there was going to be a conference on Claudia Bushman and Mormon Sisters, Claudia said, "What in the world for?" So we've been here. We couldn't make it for the whole morning, but for part of it. And we found the answers that there are a lot of people here who have been part of the exponent world and all that it stands for. So we really are very grateful to all of you for coming, and especially to Caroline and Maxine for putting the whole thing together. It's been quite inspiring all around. So I'm just going to ask Claudia some questions, and you can give whatever answers pop into your mind. And then, as Caroline said, we can hear from the audience here. Claudia, why don't you give your version of how you felt when you heard that there's going to be this conference on you and Exponent 2?
Well, the trouble is I don't remember very much anymore about anything. I forget things very fast, so I'm sure I had a good crack, but I can't remember what it was. I think it was something like, what, why are they doing this? Some kind of, was that what I said? Well, anyway, I mean, look at this. This is quite amazing. Why is this happening? I must be somebody. Is that enough of it?
That's perfect. Classic. So let me ask you the domestic side of the question about when you were doing all these things in Boston with women, not just Mormon Sisters or Exponent 2, but Pink Issue of Dialogue and so on. Same time, you had 6 children and you were working on a PhD in American Studies. How were you able to do all that?
Well, I don't know, but that's, as I say, I don't remember very much anyway. But the thing is, what I do is I do whatever comes to mind. And if I think of something, I say, why not do it? So I just do it. And if I have other things going, that's all right too. But anyway, and certainly I don't regret anything that they've ever organized or put together. That was always worthwhile and good to do.
Yeah. In Claremont, you worked with the LDS Women's Oral History Project. How did that come about? Yeah. Details of how that happened?
Well, again, I say I don't remember things very well, but for some reason, I was teaching a class at Claremont and somebody came to visit, or anyway, somebody came to visit and I showed them around or some kind of thing like that. And when she left, she gave me $10. Is that right?
$10,000.
Was it 10? It was some money, it was serious money. I thought, what am I going to do with this? Because, of course, all my projects, I never do anything that costs any money because that just makes it much harder. So here with all this money, what to do with it? And finally we decided, well, we'll have an oral history project and we can buy equipment. So we were able to buy recorders and transcription machines and things like that, and even hire some of the transcription done. And, that was pretty good. So, you don't really need any money to do anything, but if you have money, you can always find a use for it.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think is the value of that project? Here are all these accounts of women's lives stored away in the library at Claremont.
Well, I don't even know if there is any real value, but I'm sure there is. And I mean, someday every now and then I come across somebody's transcribed oral history and read it with great interest. And people will be interested in those things. Who's going to look at them? Will they ever be useful for any extended purpose? I don't know. But I always think you always want to write it down. So just to have recorded an oral history is a good thing. So whether it's used or whether it's not, it's a good thing to have done. So always, if there's ever any reason you can write something down or think about, should I be writing this down or not? The answer is yes, write it down, write it down.
Aren't you the one who said if you write it down, someday it'll turn to gold?
Oh, that's right. Someday. No, what I say is someday, and then someday it'll just happen that it will have gotten into the ground and somebody will dig it up and there it'll be, gold plates.
You did all these projects in Boston and other places. Did you have what were your reasons for doing it? Did you see this as a feminist cause that somehow you were advancing women?
No, not really, because I don't take on big projects because I don't think of it as something huge, but I think you can always be doing something. And I think a written record is always a great thing. If there's ever a reason to write something down, get it written. If it ever occurs to you to say, well, I ought to have somebody talk to me so I can write down about their lives, do it. It's always a good thing to have done that, even if it gets lost, even if it never gets used for any purpose, or it's good that it was done. So always take such opportunities as come your way.
That's good. Take care of your opportunities that come your ways. You sometimes think of some of your women as your girls. I think there's a paper on Claudia's girls. What were those girls that you make so much of? Claudia's girls, what were they?
Well, they're just various people that have come together in one class or other, or one organization or another. And there've been several groups, when classes, university classes, whatever. Anyway, there are an awful lot of girls, a lot of females, a lot of them that are here that are my girls. That's true.
All right. Well, okay. You like working with Mormon women. You've done a lot of it.
Yes, Mormon women are wonderful to work with because you can always count on them to do things. They come through, there are a lot of people that you work with, they say they'll do something and they don't. But Mormon women are just great committee people or to do anything. What am I doing?
It's just making a little noise.
Am I doing something wrong? If I am, let me know. Is that better? This?
Yeah, not too close.
This?
Yeah, that's perfect, right there. Okay. All right. You want to say anything more about Mormon women and working with them?
I don't think I need to. Everybody knows. A superior group in every way.
You have been a project person, and all the things we're talking about today were projects that you worked on and loved. But when you went to Delaware, when we moved from Boston to Delaware, you got involved in the Delaware Heritage Commission and did projects there again. Not everyone hears that part of your life because they're more interested in your Mormon business. But you were, Claudia, in Delaware in state politics.
That's right. That was one of my better personas. But I forget all those things, but it really was great. Yeah. You want to talk about any of those?
Yes, talk about the biggest parade in Delaware history.
That's right. We had the largest parade ever. Of course, it's a small state, so they didn't have a lot of great bigger things. But yes, we did a lot of the bests because. Oh, yes, we had the great bicentennial Ladybug launch. You may wonder why that was the case. And it's hard for me to even pull any of this back together. But it was something like, I'm not sure how, anyway, the ladybug was the state insect. We had a state insect. And how did it come to be the state insect? I think it was a class, a second grade class or something like that decided, they wanted to do something with state insect. There wasn't a state insect. So they said, well, let's name a state insect. They did. And because it was Delaware, a little place where you can do a lot of things, they went to the legislature and it was passed as the state insect. This is a grammar school class. How about that? Isn't that something?
So what did you do on this launch?
We liberated over 1 million ladybugs. Now, exactly what happens when you liberate a ladybug? Not much, unfortunately. They're not really eager to get away. They don't try very hard. They would crawl off. Some would occasionally fly. They might raise a wing or two in farewell. But anyway, it's the idea. You can do a lot with an idea that doesn't really work, which I have done many times.
All right. One of your projects that not everyone has heard about was a New York project at Radio City Music Hall.
Radio City Music Hall. We had the largest, we put on the biggest show that ever took place in Radio City Music Hall. We had how many thousands of people
Over
participating?
2,000.
Over 2,000. We had, this was a church thing. I don't remember all this very well, but this, as I remember, it was a church thing, and we had a large area involved. How
It
many?
was the whole temple district. Yes,
The temple
at the
district.
dedication of the temple.
Dedication of the temple, a performance at Radio City Music Hall. We had acts come in from over the whole entire temple district and perform continuously for how many hours?
2 hours, yeah.
Is that something? People would come and go. I mean, and you know about the level of the performance, but you know, it's about as good as Radio City generally does. But that's the kind of project I love. I love big participation and
Yeah.
big areas and lots of things, lots of people.
People have talked today about your regrettable retirement as editor of Exponent because of your connection, because of the church request. How do you feel about the church now?
How do I feel about the church just in general?
Yeah.
I love the church. I've always loved the church. I think it's fine. It's coming along. I don't see anything to complain about. I'm not complaining about anything in the church. Am I?
Why not?
I've lost energy, that's why.
Have you ever considered dropping out of the church? Ever considered dropping out of the church?
No, I don't think so. I've often thought, well, not often, but on occasion, that the church might want to drop out of me or drop me out, as the case may be, but that hasn't happened either. So they've put up with me, but I've been very grateful to be a member of the church.
Okay. You've written all these books, a dozen or so, one form or another. Do you really enjoy writing?
No, I don't like to write at all. I never write unless I absolutely have to, but sometimes I have to, so I do. So
Okay. You've been keeping a journal for 40 years. Why have you done that?
because a record should be kept, that's why you should keep a record. And you know, I don't mind writing a journal. I think it's a good thing to be able to sit down and say, now, do I have anything to say about this day? Is there anything to say? And it doesn't have to be much, but I have something usually. So,
She still keeps it faithfully every day. The journals.
except recently,
Well, not today and yesterday, but
the day
the
before.
day before you the journal entry. And it's actually very compelling set of entries. I read it faithfully.
He sneaks in and does it.
What do you have to say about your autobiography, I, Claudia?
When did I write it? It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think everyone should write an autobiography. I think everyone should tell her story, his or her story, because there isn't anyone else that can tell that story. And it's just always good if there's a story to be told, it should be told. If it's going to be told, it should be written. So why not do it? And it may be that nobody particularly will value it. It may be that they will. I've done a lot of work with people's autobiographies. I love them. They say all kinds of interesting things. It is just interesting to see what people decide to write about when they're writing about themselves. It's not always what you would expect. Anyway, so I think everyone should write. And everybody should write their own story. Why not? Otherwise, you'll just be forgotten. I mean, and then that's easy enough. And of course, I've got ancestor stories. Do I read them? No. I'm sure I could find them if I really wanted to. I don't really care, but But it's you don't write just to for other people to read your story. You write to have it there sitting on the shelf.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure the audience has some questions they'd like to ask. Caroline, do you want to take them or?
So now is the time to open this up to the audience to offer maybe not so much questions, but maybe more comments or appreciations or memories or perhaps a question or two as well. But we wanted to give you guys a chance to talk publicly about Claudia and Claudia's achievements and what it has meant to you in your lives. Oh, sure.
Go ahead. Well, I'm Dixie Huffner, and Bob and I had the great pleasure of living kitty corner from Claudia and Dick, when he was still Dick, in Arlington, Massachusetts. And our boys were the same ages as Carl and Margaret. And they used to play together a lot, and Claudia and I used to walk the neighborhood a lot together. And I adore Claudia because she is her own person and she tells you who she is and what she's thinking and what she thinks you might do. And we compared notes about our children, and she always had another idea. And one of the things that I remember from long ago was she thought the LDS Church did not pay enough attention to Easter. And it was very important in Mormon theology, so why didn't we recognize Easter better? And when she was living in New York later on, I remember her telling me that she liked Palm Sunday, and she liked to go to the Episcopalian church and get palms. And if I'm not mistaken, you took them to the Mormon ward on Palm Sunday and tried to influence the church in that way, in her own way. Now, in very recent years, I notice the church is paying considerably more attention to Easter. I think it's due to Claudia.
Well, it's so fun to attend this tribute to Claudia and her work. My name is Cheryl May, and I was a graduate student and part of the Mormon women's group contributing to the Pink Issue and to Mormon Sisters. And I have these vivid, wonderful memories of Claudia, and she sounds just the same. Acerbic. Her manner is, let's get things done and let's not make a big fuss about it. And it was an amazing group of women. We've talked about many of the things that that Claudia has put together, some of them with Richard now. But in that group with Dixie, with Laurel, with Judy, and a number of others, hundreds of thousands of people have been influenced and aided for the good in many areas of life because of what they have had the commitment and the drive and the talent to do. And so I'm very appreciative of their efforts and of their results.
Hi, I'm Judy Dushku. You missed my presentation this morning because I said nice things about you, and I'll tell them to you later. But one thing I noticed in your book is that, because we've talked about how we were all together, we were doing so many things. In your book, you say, I never liked those women's libbers. And I thought, oh, gee, I didn't know that. I thought we were all in unison in support of women's libbers. So I would love it if you'd comment on that one difference that we had in our early time. And then before you leave today, would you lead us in Women Rise Thy Pen and Soar? because you are the one who found those suffragist songs that have become the anthems for the Mormon women's liberation movement. And I think it's a great part of what you've contributed to this whole culture.
Let's do that right now.